Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Combo Breaker 99 back with another video. Just want to do a video talking about Danny Jacobs and Sergiy Derevyanchenko. First, I gotta say shout out to Danny Jacobs. Finally getting a piece of the middleweight crown in a tough split decision over Sergiy Derevyanchenko. And shout out to Derevyanchenko for taking the tough fight and definitely not making it an easy fight for Jacobs and putting everything on the line. He definitely came to fight, but I do feel like this was a tough fight, but I actually don't think it was a split decision. I think it was unanimous. I know a lot of people might not agree, but I did have the fight about 9 rounds to 3. Danny Jacobs, maybe 8 to 4 at best, because I felt that Derevyanchenko, he did come on strong in the second half. I feel there was a lot of competitive rounds, but Jacobs, he was doing just enough to take a lot of, just a lot of to take the second half, especially the way he was just making those little adjustments to take each round. He was kind of staying one step ahead of Sergiy Derevyanchenko just with his jabs and his body shots, kind of making the rounds give and take, but he was just giving a little something extra. Let's look at the first half of the fight. I think Jacobs, he was the stronger fighter, and he controlled the rounds with his jabs, and you could tell there was some body language where he felt, he was on familiar ground with Sergiy Derevyanchenko, but he still didn't take too much advantage of that. Sergiy Derevyanchenko, he wasn't, coming in there for a sparring session this time. I think in the first half, Jacobs, he was able to knock Derevyanchenko down. When he did that, it kind of woke him up. It kind of worked Derevyanchenko up, and Derevyanchenko, he realized this was going to be a tough fight, and Danny Jacobs was really coming after him. So in order to counterattack any power attempts of Jacobs after that, he started taking the fight to Jacobs. He was kind of fighting fire with fire, so he really came after Jacobs. And in the second round, he was able to up the pace, and he caught Jacobs with a solid right hand that kind of rocked Jacobs. But Danny, he recovered pretty quick, and he started fighting well off the ropes from there. And Sergiy, he really started to find success with those right hands. He was doubling the jab, and every time he would double the jab, he would kind of follow with the right hand. He was landing those shots on Jacobs' chin. Gotta give shout out to Jacobs. Jacobs was able to take the power of Derevyanchenko, but he was also able to really take those shots because of the angles he was giving Derevyanchenko. There was a part in the fight where even Roy mentioned it, where Jacobs would kind of switch southpaw to kind of get out of the way of the right hand of Derevyanchenko, which is smart thinking, because every time he would get to the ropes, he would switch to that angle, and it would kind of make Derevyanchenko reach for it, and that way Danny Jacobs, he could counter with his left hand and add more power to it. But from there, you could kind of really see Jacobs, he was kind of settling into a groove a little bit. But again, Sergiy Derevyanchenko, he kept bringing a fight to him, so Jacobs, he could never really find a solid rhythm on what Derevyanchenko was going to bring. Second half of the fight, Sergiy, he was upping the body shots. He was able to get more work in on the ropes and kind of slow Jacobs down. But again, like I said, Jacobs, he was just really staying one step ahead of him, with more punches. Whenever Derevyanchenko would go to the body, Jacobs, he would attack the body with 3 or 4 more shots, and he was still adding a good jab in. But Jacobs, he was doing those just doing those little tricks, even when he was on the ropes, kind of rolling his head a little bit, kind of making a lot of Derevyanchenko's shots kind of glance off his head, where he wouldn't take the full power. Taking a lot of the steams off his shots just by kind of pushing Derevyanchenko back with the shoulder. In the center of the ring, he would kind of push him with the shoulder. And I just think a lot of those little tricks like that, they would just kind of help him edge out the rounds, edge out those real close rounds. Even when I'm sure, fans felt Sergiy was winning, Jacobs, he was just landing the more solid shots, accurate shots, especially whenever Sergiy Derevyanchenko, he started to kind of gasp in the later rounds. But I will give Derevyanchenko credit, man. He finished the fight strong. I think he won. I think he did win in round 11, though. It was either round 11 or 12. When he got down to those championship rounds, he started coming on strong, and he definitely never really had any quit in him. Even though he gassed out a little bit, he never really had any quit in him. And I will say this: I think Derevyanchenko, he did do better work and more efficient body work than Triple G did in the Jacobs fight. And I always say this, I tell people this, I always felt like Jacobs did win that Golovkin fight, but Derevyanchenko, he probably would have gave Triple G hell if they fought, and I think that's kind of why Triple G, he avoided that mandatory and gave this belt up. But overall, it wasn't a performance that Sergiy should be ashamed of, and it's definitely not a first loss to kind of look down on. It was more of a learning experience. 12 more rounds to their 300 rounds they already shared together. So fans have to realize, that these two, like I said, they sparred over 300 rounds, and it might sound like since Jacobs, he's the more experienced fighter, he should have won easier. But, Sergey, he's just as hungry, and, he's a student of the game as well. So he's learning too when they spar. So when they go into this fight, he's going to know Jacobs just as much. And when it comes to the real fight, both guys, they're going to really be sitting down on their punches in this fight, and they're really going to be taking advantage of each other's weaknesses. So overall, I just got to say it was a really good fight. And yeah, like I said, for two guys who sparred each other, they really came to fight. They didn't go easy on each other, and they really wanted it. And Jacobs, he just wanted it just a little bit more. So shout out to Jacobs again. This was his fourth undefeated fighter in a row, and he finally got a world title. So the game's open up for him now. So hopefully he can get that Canelo fight, or until then, maybe a Demetrius Andre fight sometime next year. But let me know what you guys think of this fight. I thought it was a good, solid middleweight fight. Who you want to see Danny Jacobs in there next with? I might do a who's next video for Danny Jacobs. But yeah, make sure you guys subscribe. It's Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Peace.